Danny Gilfillan for Boxing News, delighted to be joined by the voice of boxing, Adam Smith. Adam, I think we are quite literally the last two people here, bar the people taking down the stage, so I appreciate you giving me some of your time. How are we?
I'm good. I was just looking around, and somebody said earlier that would you stay here for the next two nights? How excited are you? As in, would you not leave? And the answer is yes. I mean, I'd be quite happy to bed down here for a couple of days, but I don't think I am leaving. I think I'm here, and it'll be sort of wandering down to the way, and I might pop home. I'm only about 15 minutes away, so I'd like to see my wife and kids. But yeah, it's I'm really excited. Really excited. I'm so glad to be back commentating, and it was fantastic to do the Usyk Fury fight out in Riyadh. But this is the biggest fight I'll have done at home since my illness. So yeah, it's so exciting. You know, Oleksandr Usyk is a living legend. I love the guy. I've worked very closely with him, and I've also been quite close to Daniel Dubois and Stan and Don and the team, and it's great they're both getting the opportunity on this huge stage at the National Stadium to change. Certainly Daniel changed his life, and for Oleksandr just to add, I guess, more icing on the cake of what's already been a glittering career. But yeah, and being paid a huge amount of money too, which I think is really important for fighters that have short careers, that put their lives on the line for our entertainment. And yeah, it's fabulous. It's a great fight. It's undisputed, all the marbles for the first time ever in Britain. And Daniel deserves his opportunity after the AJ victory. And Oleksandr Usyk is welcomed back to London. It's his second home, and it's great to have him with us. And I expect a great fight.
Just so much to unpack with this fight, Adam, so much narrative. First thing I want to talk to you about, and I'm sure you've spoke about it already because you've done about 20 interviews before this, the low blow, the amount that Team Dubois have made of it in the press conference. I mean, Don Charles has gone as far to call Oleksandr an actor, a cheat. Do you think, not that Oleksandr Usyk's ever been someone who's been needed extra motivation, legacy's always been at the forefront for him, but do you think that's maybe lit that little fire under Oleksandr Usyk, having been around him this week?
That's a really good question, actually. I don't think he's rattled. I don't think he's ever rattled. He walked out of the press conference, the first one, to announce the fight here. I think he felt he was just irritated about something was said, but I think it takes a lot to sort of rattle and upset him. Someone asked earlier, actually, about whether if Daniel Lapin loses on Saturday night, whether that might be a difficult one to take, and that's an interesting thing, actually, which we'll only know on Saturday. But I think all of this, I think he's seen it all before. He's the master at press conferences. He plays with his beads, or he does his Rubik's cubes, or his Sudoku, or his poems, or whatever. I don't think he really worries too much about it. Yeah, look, I think the low blow, they had to try that. I think George Fox would have probably done more if he could have got away with it today. I think that's history. You know, he lost the fight, Daniel. He went on and lost the fight. I think that's all history. I think what's much more exciting is that Daniel's in a much better place 2 years on. He is the same person, but I think he's a very different mental version of that. I think he's a very psychologically improved version of Daniel Dubois, mentally and physically, I think, as well. He's very strong under Don Charles. So I think that's more interesting than thinking about whether it was a low blow, wasn't it? Is Usyk weak to the body? He got knocked down by Artur Beterbiev in the amateurs. He's never had a problem with being hit to the body since then. I think if anyone gets hit to the body and it's the right time and the right place in any fight, Ricky Hatton was the master of dishing out the body shots, and then when one came back his way right at the end of his career, he had to sit it out. So I think sometimes you get hit by a body shot, whoever you are, it's going to upset you and unsettle you. The key is not to get hit in that area. So I think, look, they're taking confidence to the fact that he felt that, whatever it was. Do I think it was a low blow? Possibly slightly. Did I think Oleksandr made, whether a meal of it is the right phrase for someone I respect so highly, but certainly he used every bit of his experience to take his time, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. So no, I don't think he's annoyed. I think they probably expected even more from Team Dubois. Don and George and everyone were pretty quiet today, weren't they? Riz Khan was a little bit more outspoken. Daniel himself was a bit more outspoken. But I thought the team were pretty quiet. Yeah, look, I mean, look, the talking's over. I think we know now that he's got an edge, Daniel, to him because he believes that was a legitimate shot and he was robbed. But whatever happened, he wouldn't necessarily have gone on to win anyway. We don't know what would have happened. Would he have had would the count have happened and Oleksandr wouldn't have got up if it was deemed legal? Would he have got up? We don't know. No one knows the answer to that. What we do know is what happened in history, which is that Oleksandr Usyk won the fight. And he starts favourite for this one because he won that fight. He's very good in rematches and there's no sign of decline. That's the problem that Dubois got. Dubois mentally and physically in the best possible shape. He'll never have a better chance in this sort of fight on this sort of stage, but he's still got to beat Oleksandr Usyk, who is the best. That's the problem.
Adam, do you agree with the narrative that if this fight goes into the second half, that it gets incrementally a lot more difficult for Daniel Dubois as the minutes and the rounds tick on?
Yes. I think Dubois has got to have success in the first 3 or 4 rounds. I think if you look back at the AJ Usyk fight, first fight at Spurs, which is an interesting one because most people thought AJ would win beforehand. Alex Krasiak told me in at the weigh-in that AJ's made a massive mistake because he's no good with southpaws and Usyk's too good an amateur boxer for AJ. And as it turned out, that was what happened. In the first 30 seconds of that fight, Usyk took Joshua's jab away. So the start of a fight with Usyk is key. If Usyk takes Daniel Dubois' jab away early, he's got a lot of problems. If Daniel can get his jab off, like he did against AJ here, and doubles it up and starts getting some success by backing up Usyk a bit and really trying to test not just his body, but the resistance to some of the big punches. Remember, he had a little problem in the back end of the AJ second fight, Usyk. And Tyson sort of troubled him at times as well. I think that if Daniel gets a really good start and that pressure in the first 2 or 3 rounds has an effect on Usyk, then it's a very, very interesting fight. I think if Usyk rides out the first 2 or 3 rounds and his movement is good and his judgment of distance is as good as it normally is, I think it gets more and more difficult for Daniel Dubois as the fight goes on. It has to, because I think he'll have thrown everything at Usyk, and then 1 or 2 people are questioning whether, the old demons come back to haunt him. Joe Joyce and Dubois. He got stopped in both of those fights. He got through Hrgovic's bombs in the first 2 or 3 rounds. He got through Miller's physical strength for 10 rounds. He even stopped Miller. All good signs. Don Charles has got him right. All good signs. But if it gets hard for him after 6, 7, 8 rounds, I think it will be difficult again for Dubois. I think Usyk won't let him off the hook. So I think, yes, Daniel Dubois has got to get him out of there, or he's certainly got to hurt him in the first 3 or 4 rounds and make a big impression on him early to win this fight.
Last question, Adam. Let's say Oleksandr Usyk, as you said earlier, a clear favourite, hypothetically wins this fight. What then? Do you want to see him carry on? There were people who said perhaps he should retire after the Tyson Fury rematch win. What's left to achieve? Are there any names out there that Oleksandr hasn't picked off yet that you like him to see step into the ring with, or would you like to see him retire? Because there is a concern I've seen amongst, who isn't an Oleksandr Usyk fan, but people on social media saying that, if you keep rolling the dice, you keep carrying on, Father Time, that old adage, is undefeated. Would you like to see that be it for Oleksandr if he is to win on Saturday?
I still think he's a young 38-year-old. I don't think Father Time. I think you'd have seen that in the Fury fights if that was catching up with him. I think they're a very, very intelligent camp. I think that, Professor Kuba in there and all the other scientists and conditioners and trainers that they've got in the incredible team in Gandia would have said to Oleksandr, look, things aren't quite the same. I'm sure they would have had that conversation. So to me, and I wasn't in this camp, but I was privy to be in Oleksandr's camp last time in November. He looked phenomenal to me. So I don't think that's a worry just yet. But yeah, of course, Father Time could catch up with him on Saturday, or it could catch up with him in 6 months, a year's time. What I'd like to see happen, if he wins this fight and becomes undisputed for the 3rd time, and etches his name in sporting history if he hasn't already, or does it in Britain, or whatever we say if and when he wins, he's told me he wants 2 more fights. So the fight I'd like to see him have is in Ukraine. I don't know how that's possible, whether it even is possible, and how long he'd have to wait for that to happen. But I looked at a boxing genius last week in Katie Taylor in Madison Square Garden, and I think Oleksandr Usyk is a boxing genius. It's interesting that both of them like each other as much as they do themselves, if you see what I mean, or they both respect each other so hugely. If you ask Katie who her favourite fighter is, it's Oleksandr Usyk. Ellie Scotney also is a massive Usyk fan and is here this week to see him. Yeah, big Usyk fan, as many people are. I have the same want for Katie as I do with Oleksandr. I'd like Oleksandr to go to Ukraine, and as many people come out to see him in anything, an exhibition, a fight, whoever. Joe Parker deserves the fight, obviously. Moses Atau, or maybe even Jaya Bataille are the only two others that you could think of as potentially a problem for Usyk. I'd like to see a homecoming in Ukraine. I'd like to see Katie have a homecoming in Ireland. Both next year if it was possible. And that, I think, is the right way for them to finish their careers. Yeah, that's all they've got left to do.
Adam, as I say, thank you very much for the time. I'll let you get off. I'm sure Darren Barker might still be waiting about for that coffee, but
he's just told me he's gone, so the coffee is off. It's over. I might get a coffee on the way home, but I've lost Darren. And I'm terribly sorry, Darren. I apologise, but there was a number of interviews. I should have gone for the coffee. He was my commitment. I have let him down. I'm sure he will not let me forget it. But you know what I'll do? He likes chocolate, so I'll get the biggest bar of whole nut I can find and bring it ringside on Saturday night.
You might have let Darren Barker down, but you've pleased the Boxing News subscribers, I'm sure. Adam, thanks very much.
No problem.